really help push. I believe that a great city makes sure that our children are focused on early literacy very early on. And less than half of third graders are proficient in reading in our city, and I think that's a shame. Literacy starts in the early years, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And so one of the ways that we can do this is by getting books into our children's hands. I know my daughter is 2.5, and she's got a library with 100 books. And she wakes up in the morning asking to play with books. She brings them down. She won't eat breakfast without them. I feel like I'm reading to her the way that I should be doing. But I also know that that reality is not something we find at every home. And in some homes, the telephone book may be the only book that you see there. And so what I want to do is have the city make sure that we're providing books to every family, to every child in our city. And so the program that I'm calling Books from Birth would put one book per month into every kid's hands through the mail from 0 to 5. And it's a data-driven, it's a proven concept. Other places that have done this, you see a 10 to 15% increase in children's reading scores. I think that it's something that we can really fight a lot of the early childhood illiteracy and really prepare our young kids to be more successful in the classroom. And then a component of that is in a lot of households we have the adult who maybe has low literacy or maybe is intimidated by the book. And so one of the things this can do is also help pair up adult literacy outreach and training with the adult to make sure they know and have a greater level of confidence in reading and helping encourage that child and connect them to the library. So those are a couple of the bills that I've introduced right off the bat. One that I also introduced that I know is near and dear to this community and something that I promised that I would introduce, and that is related to our RPP parking. And I've introduced the legislation, it died in the council last time, but that this neighborhood would maintain its Zone 2 RPP rather than the Zone 6 RPP. I reached out to my new friend, Councilmember Jack Evans from Ward 2. He's continued to oppose this. I told him that I'm going to support it, and I'm going to try to work with him to see if we can't get this passed. But it's in the hopper. It's been introduced to the council, and we'll try to keep working on that because I know that's something that the ANC has certainly talked about and something that I'd like to see, make sure that this neighborhood is connected to Zone 2 RPP, because I think that people park in their neighborhood and the type of errands and the things that you're going to use your vehicle for make a lot more sense when it's more neighborhood based than driving to Eastern Market or another part of Ward 6. I don't think does our residents in this neighborhood as much good as a Zone 2 RPP would do. So that's something I'm going to work on. We have not been without our challenges in the first month. We obviously, in the second week on the job in the council, we had the very tragic fire on Metro, and that's something that we have been really trying to wrestle with and figure out what happened. This Thursday, we actually have a hearing where we're going to try to dig into what exactly happened, why, and try to make sure that never happens again. Our first responders, I think, did a great job of getting to the scene with the information that they had, but as we've started to do the reports and the reviews, we're certainly finding they did not have the full information, and they also had some equipment that did not let them do their job, and unfortunately with tragic consequence. And so on Thursday afternoon, I'll be spending my afternoon really trying to dig in with fire and EMS and with our emergency services to try to better understand and make sure that we're better prepared in the future. We also have certainly had some financial news for folks who follow this closely. We've got about an $80 million gap in the district's budget for the fiscal year that we're currently in, and we have about a $250 million gap in the next fiscal year. Now, I think we can address these. I think we can be very smart and strategic about how we go about this, and the council and the mayor have been meeting, trying to make sure that we come up with some shared solutions and some shared strategies around this. But just so everybody knows, from a process standpoint, in February, what's called the revenue estimate comes out, and we'll start to get some new numbers and get a little more clarity around exactly where we are. And then our mayor will put forward a budget at the beginning of April, and that's when the council then starts its job reviewing that budget, making changes to that budget, and ultimately passing a budget sometime later in May. And so that's going to be a challenge. It's $250 million is not something we're going to find in seat cushions. So we've got to really be smart about where we're going to find that money, make sure we're protecting the programs, and making the smart investments that we need to for our city. So those are a few of the challenges ahead, but I'm really excited about it. For folks who don't know, I want to introduce Naomi Mitchell, who's on my team. Miss Mitchell right here.
We thank you for keeping Naomi. She's been wonderful.
She is phenomenal. She is phenomenal. I couldn't do my job without folks like Naomi and everybody on our team. And I do think that we've got one of the best teams around. And I'm really proud of what we've put together. Miss Mitchell is a key part of that. So I appreciate it. Absolutely. So I appreciate her working with me and helping represent. You'll see her at ANC meetings and community meetings every night of the week. So when you don't see me, you'll see Naomi, I promise. Absolutely. Well, with that, I'd love to also turn it over to a few questions. I defer to the commissioners is exactly how you'd like to proceed. If it...
Does anyone on the commission have a question or a comment they'd like to make to Mr. Allen?
I do, just brief. You know, I wish you luck with the parking situation, because I'm not sure if necessarily you need to work on Jack. I think you need to have the rest of the council behind you and then go from there, because what happened, we lobbied over and over again, and then everyone agreed, the council people, their staff, and then lo and behold came the vote, and everyone sided with him. So I would actually do it the other way. Not focus on him, but with the other council.
He is my colleague, and he is somebody that I have to work with, and he's somebody that I do want to try to, you know, I need to respect that he's the Ward 2 council member. I need to respect that he has his perspective on exactly how that works, and so I appreciate it, and I will continue to work with both Mr. Evans, but of course the rest of the council as well. Thank you.
You can tell where our loyalties lie. Is there anyone out in the audience here who would like to make a comment? Please, gentleman in the back, and would you state your name, please?
Larry Green.
Yes, sir.
The parking situation, you have your contact information so I can deal with you or Ms. Mitchell in reference to the parking situation. I oversee the security at the Springfield Baptist Church at 6 and P. And it's been an ongoing dilemma problem. And I would like to, try to talk about
Would be more than happy to work with you specifically on that issue. My phone number, our office phone number, for everybody who needs that, is 724-8072. That's 724-8072. For folks on email, my email address is callen, so CALLEN, at dccouncil, all is one word, .us. And Mr. Green, we'll make sure between myself or Ms. Mitchell that we connect with you to get that information to you.
Young man?
Yes, David Jaffe. My block, the 200 block of N Street, when you're talking about the parking, I know that I have friends that live on the other side of New Jersey Avenue, and they do have Zone 2 parking, but I have Zone 6. So I know, I'm curious why that little specific section of our Ward 6 has Zone 2 parking, but then, as it crosses New Jersey and, my one little block doesn't. How come part of the ward has it, but not other,
I'd have to look at that exact block to be able to give you the full answer. Part of it, I do think the Department of Transportation has not necessarily done the greatest job in terms of how they've rolled this out. I think it's been very confusing to folks, and I think that it is something that they've got a new director, and as we head into the oversight hearings, I know that's something I'm going to try to understand a little better why they're making some of the decisions they have. I've also found them to make mistakes, and they've missed blocks, or they change one block and don't change another. We've all seen the number of parking signs that you'll see stacked one on top of another, and sometimes they make sense and sometimes they don't. So they're not infallible. When we find a problem, though, I want to work to fix that. But on the specific block, I'll probably have to follow up to make sure I understand it.
I'm going to guess that we're going to do an article in our newsletter as soon as we get more information from the council member regarding this situation, so that we will be able to get that information back out to everybody in the community. Leroy, question?
Thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you, sir.
The parking issue, I think, I hope the commissioner is listening to me. A lot of time the district's coming to a point where you have to build up instead of out because of lack of land. And I think we're missing a point in terms of the condos. A lot of people are building these condos, they have to pay for parking, and they have, the option of just parking, parking on the streets, parking residentially on the street, instead of paying for parking in the condo development. I'd like to see you kind of look into ways and how we can kind of deal with that situation. Also, like to see you emulate a little bit of Jack Evans in terms of getting out in this particular community and meeting with the diversity, economically, socially, politically, ethnically. Jack was loved in this community. That's why he never had a problem getting the votes out of here. So I'd like to see you emulate that and get to know folks on a diverse level. Although there's gentrification, the community's changing, the city's changing. It's not just here in D.C., but from a national standpoint, gentrification is happening in urban cities where folks that live out in the suburbs want to live closer to the city where they work and that type of thing. That's one of the reasons they're moving back into the city. But I'd like to see you still reach out to the other aspects of the community to get an ear of what folks think and what they need as well.
Well, I appreciate that. You're absolutely right, and that's part of what I've got to do, and we'll continue to do it. It's not going to happen overnight. I realize that. I look forward to that, and hopefully we can get together as well to map out some of that. I appreciate that. Your comment on the condos, I think, is also spot on.
Mhm.
If we were to have everybody who lives in a high rise, all of a sudden everybody gets parking, and then try to park on that block, we're going to quickly fill up any ability we have to be able to park in the neighborhood, and we're going to flood the streets. So we do have to be smart about that. We've got some places where it's going to make complete sense to have the parking underground. We're going to have some places where it makes sense to have that type of neighborhood parking. It's a challenge
It is.
because we can't create too much more parking,
Mhm.
and we're going to have more people keep coming.
Right.
And so we got to be smart about it, strategic about it. In some cases, we're just going to be case by case, trying to solve those problems as they come up. Absolutely. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Thomas Bowen, minister of Shiloh Baptist Church, here with several Shiloh members. And we adopted Seat Elementary School. We had a tree that we gave gifts to all the students around Christmas time. My question is, how does one get involved with your Books and Birth initiative? Who should we contact?
Well, I appreciate it. You can contact me directly, and either through my email address or I think we follow each other on Twitter, so we can make sure we can connect that way too. And I appreciate it. One of the things I've been really impressed with is a number of people that have kind of reached out to say that they think this is a good idea. We also have some phenomenal organizations in our city that also do some of this. We've got Reach Out and Read, which is a program where pediatricians work to make sure that they're having the books when kids come in for their checkups. We've got folks like First Books DC. What they do is they do book fairs where they're handing out books. And part of the challenge, of course, is if you're the parent that actively seeks out that book fair to go get those books and bring them into your home, you're already taking a lot of the right steps. I probably have a lot of confidence you're doing the right thing. You're bringing, you've got the resources or the wherewithal to figure out how you get those books and make sure that you're reading to that child. We have a lot of parents and a lot of grandparents and caregivers that are intimidated by the book. The book itself is intimidating. Going to the library is intimidating. And so if we're talking about somebody with low literacy, I want to get the book into your hands, and I want to get that into your home. And then that's where we can also tailor the messaging to make sure that we can also reach that adult with the help they need, the adult literacy programs. So I'd love to follow up with you about how we can connect on that, and would love to have your support for that initiative. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea, and I think this community would support both Shiloh and ANC6E, I'm sure would support doing something to make sure those books get into the hands of the children in our community. So you can count on this educator of 45 years to help out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. How y'all doing? Happy New Year, people ain't it? My question is when it comes to projects, meaning in this community, some people don't have access to computers, so they choose not to, but do you send out letters and stuff 2 days prior for people to get hired for these projects in our neighborhood? I mean, your neighborhood too, because you represent us in their neighborhood too.
Exactly.
And it's a responsibility as us as a community. And it's scary that we don't have young people coming out to these meetings who need to know about things like this. You ain't even advertising that because we ain't got one young person here. I mean, about elders. Don't know right now. I'm young too, but you get what I'm saying,
absolutely.
to pull them in to know anything about their community and what they gotta live with. I'm actually 2 questions, but why is that we can't energize them? I know why it is, but because it ain't happening. They energize them to come to meetings like this. So you reach out. They are the problem. A lot of them ain't got no kids. I mean, a lot of them ain't got no parents, and they just looking for somebody strong to reach out to. They are the problem. The crime rate because of them, it ain't because of old people my age.
I hear you.
What can we do to generate to get them here, like we do with church.
Well, so part of, I think, the challenge is not.
But listen, another thing.
Okay.
Listen, another thing. We are not helping the problem for the simple fact they ain't know about the job fair that was in the building right across the street.
One of the things that I've learned is that, you could sit all day long on Twitter and think you're talking to people, and you're talking to, a small little handful. You can be on Facebook, you can be on email, you can be all over the place, and you're only talking to a really small group of people. You got to be doing all those things. One of the things that I'm going to be doing, and my commitment is to be not just sending out the email blasts that have the newsletters that go
Are
out.
you the new city council member?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, you better greet me. You gonna see me.
I look forward to it.
You understand what
I
I'm
look
saying? But
forward
when
to it.
all I'm just saying to you, a lot of these people ain't been reached out to.
Well, that's
We
what I'm trying
can
to
reach
get
out
to.
to 'em.
So part of it is also, I think we got to, just like I was talking about the books in the mailbox, that's one way you reach people. I love a newsletter that I can touch and feel that comes in the mailbox. I think that's another way you reach out to constituents, in particular the folks who aren't going to be on email, and the folks that aren't checking the internet constantly. It's a way you can provide timely updates. And then one of the things I also want to do is, it's not just in letter form, it's not just on email, it's to be physically here. And that's a big part of what I've got to do and what you should expect and demand. One of the things I want to do is make sure that I'm in the community on a regular basis, whether we want to do it for a morning cup of coffee with office hours,
Right.
whether it's coming to, meetings in the evening, whether it's coming out on a weekend. But I'm also going to ask you guys, make sure you let me know when something's coming. Invite me to something. Let me know about it, because I know a lot, but sometimes I don't know about
Yeah,
every
it's
single
a lot.
meeting out there. So I need to also
I got
depend on you to let me know so that I can be out here, my office can be here, to make sure that we're hearing you.
So I need to get you a business card, and then also,
Mhm.
I also want to say this. People crying about a dog park. Let's cry about these children out there that's suffering. See, that's what I stand for. Our future.
Well, I appreciate that.
You feel what I'm saying?
I appreciate that we have a lot of issues and a lot of problems that we're all going to be trying to work
I
on.
ain't trying to put you under pressure. Ain't no media here, just us talking.
Mhm.
And I like stuff like that. I ain't, TMZ ain't here. But, thank you, Jesus. But anyway, I care about, and then it's sad that we sitting up here complaining about a dog park. Let's get together and and it's simple. It's simple. That's why I need your business card. It's as simple as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z.
I hear you.
And we gonna
Let's get in
it.
touch.
And what I'm gonna do, we gonna have these children. I know you, but we gonna have these kids coming to these community meetings,
Mhm.
cause they the nuisance. To be honest with you, they the nuisance out here. They disrespecting their elders. But we gonna put together something. Or we gonna try
I hear you.
to put together something with the churches, the organizations, the little side, anything we can do, and we gonna keep them informed. See, somebody told me to give somebody a chance, at least. So I believe in chances. Some people won't go to church. They don't understand it. Or some people won't even pray. You understand what I'm saying? We gonna get these kids in here. So your next meeting, I'm gonna bring some kids that's crying out for help. That you gotta really actually physically, I have my own children, but you gotta really physically grab them by their coattail and bring them and shut this violence and all this stuff down.
I hear you. I appreciate it. So what we'll do, Ms. Mitchell gave you our card. We'll make sure we
I know,
follow
Ms.
up with you, okay?
Come on, HR
We
problem.
really
All right.
appreciate your comment, and we look forward to
I
working with you.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
But
We really,
I moved back in the neighborhood, and I'm tired. I've been in the community meeting in so long. So you gonna hear me, and you
All
gonna see a
right.
lot of me.
I hope so.
Cause I'm goofy.
I don't want to see and hear you, I want to know that you're doing it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it.
All right, we're on the same page. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you. I'm Chris. I'm the site manager for Arch Terrell Recreation Center with the Department of Parks and Recreation. And your books to birth for adults. I wanted to reach out with you because we don't have a lot of adult programs, and I know that the ANC. The first time I came to an ANC meeting, that was made clear that we don't have a lot of adult programs. And I would like to reach out and possibly make that, because during the day we don't have, we're open, but we're not open. If that makes sense, because we're part of the school. So we have rules and regulations, but we do have a room upstairs that if we could do that, I think would be beneficial. Because I know I'm right by surgery quarters,
Yep.
Charter House, and I have a lot of those kids and parents that are in the, with, you know, the demographic that you said about not being able to read. So I definitely like, you know, get more information.
I appreciate it. We'll make sure we do that, and we'll connect with you. The adult programs are integral to making sure that the kids get what they need so that they can be successful in the classroom. You got to have the adults be a part of that. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this goes back to the parking issue. Like from the neighborhood on there right now. Like,
I'm sorry, sir, could you speak a little bit
My
louder?
name is Andrew Steve.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to touch on the parking issue. My quick question is, I don't know if there's any regulations that you can enforce or look into enforcing where they're like vacant property or a home that's torn down, instead of building a home the size and the structure that that home was, they're overpopulating the neighborhood with bigger buildings. Are there any restrictions to that, or is there anything that you can do to sort of like keep the neighborhood the same, rebuild on the same level that the structure was, instead of like multi-units and single unit?
I think what you're touching on is a little bit the issue of what people call pop-ups, but also you're talking about just increased density.
Well,
Is that right?
It's like, where it's a single-family home, there'll be like 3 or 4 family home.
Mhm.
You know, just
Right.
really high up, and that affects the parking as well.
I think it impacts the parking, and then it also impacts, let's say you've got a block where you have, you know, a long row of row houses, but all of a sudden one's gonna be towering above the others. You can make the argument that that's gonna be very disruptive to the character of the neighborhood, of the aesthetics of a neighborhood, and someone's gonna look out of place. There is a proposal right now before the Office of Zoning from the Office of Planning that looks to try to limit what people are calling pop-ups, and really be addressing the R4 zoning. And I think that there are some problems with their proposal, and there's some merits of what they're trying to do. And that is to try to make sure that, you know, I think you want to have the flexibility to have our homes meet our needs. Now look at my own house. So I live in just your typical row house, and it's built in 1918. At different times in the life of that house in the last 100 years, it was chopped up into three stories, and so there was the bedroom and the kitchen on all three, and then at times when the family needed, you know, their sons got married and came home with wives, and so they broke it up so it fit their needs at the time. Then they put the house all back together again in kind of more your traditional layout. I do think we want homes that help fit our needs. You know, at different times of our lives, you're gonna need different things. But there is something nice also about my block being, you know, just everybody has, you know, your Boardman style row house, and so it looks like it's contiguous. And so there's a fine balance between making sure that our homes, especially when we're talking about affordable housing, how do we make sure our homes, you know, let's say there's a family who, if they added one extra bedroom, that's the difference between them being able to afford to live in that neighborhood or not. Well, I want them to be able to stay in their neighborhood, you know, so how do we help find that balance? I don't have the answer yet, but that's something I'm trying to give a lot of thought to, is to how do we make sure that our homes can be flexible in a way that helps make us be able to stay in our community, help stay in our neighborhood, and stay in our homes. But also, you know, I'm not a big fan of these 5-story pop-ups, you know, that people like to joke that they're the middle finger on the block. That doesn't look good to me, and I think it's out of character for a neighborhood. So how do you find a balance between those things? And then your other point has to do with, you know, this neighborhood in particular is one where you've got a lot of different zoning based on which street and which block that you're on. And so there's a lot of pressure for density, and that's something that as a community we're going to challenge, and we're very challenged with. It's part of what your ANC struggles with, I know. You know, every time the developer comes to them and is seeking a PUD, planned unit development, these are issues that our ANC wrestles with. It's part of what we wrestle with on the council, trying to find that right balance to make sure our city is growing and is going to be strong, but also is something that doesn't grow so fast that it becomes unaffordable and it's not the city and the neighborhood that we know. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Rebecca James. I live on the 1600 block of Fifth Street. I don't know if this is a retread idea, but as far as with teaching adult literacy, when I was in college, I went to Baltimore, to Loyola College in Baltimore, and this school had a really big outreach to the community, and we did teaching adult literacy through the school. That it was like a course you could learn. I can't remember, this was a long time ago, but there's a national program for it. and then the students would go out and teach in the community. And I was just thinking that we have so many schools in this area with young people who are looking for course credit and for, you know, community action. And that would be one way to like involve young people in the community. And like I know that like Catholic is here and a lot of Catholic schools talk to each other. But you know, if there aren't already programs like that, that might be one possible way to help spread adult literacy education, because young people have more free time as well. And so that's just an idea.
I appreciate it. I'd love to learn more about that. And, you know, I think it's, the outreach is an important part. And it's also, you'll find, you know, there are adults, there are seniors who are sharp as a tack. And some of the smartest people that you'll meet may not be able to read though. And it's an accumulation of that just knowledge and street smarts, but maybe that literacy is really low. And so there's people you probably just would never even assume that there is a literacy barrier because you're talking to somebody who's incredibly smart and savvy. But, you know, the book is that barrier. And so that outreach is an important part of it. And I'd love to learn more about the program you're talking about.
We can take one more question?
Can I get one more in?
No.
She hadn't had a chance to ask a question, but I'll come back and.
Hi,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Elicia Washington. I'm a member of First Tabernacle. We're a historic landmark located at 4th and New York Avenue. I wanted to ask a question. Our outreach deals with East River Family Collaborative, which is across Minnesota Avenue, deals mostly with Ward 7 and 8. Been dealing with them for a while because we haven't been able to find government type agencies that do the same type of outreach for the community. It appears that this ward doesn't deem itself high risk like Ward 7 and 8 may feel they are. It doesn't appear, I know there are sections that are, but it doesn't seem to be an overarching priority. The youth, the homeless community, things like that. Ward 7 and 8, they're, you know, quote unquote, high-risk wards. Do you have anything you can mention or direct us to, maybe part of your office that we can contact directly to partner with certain, because we are a church that we've been there a long time, over 113 years, but we're still not a mega church. We're smaller, but we do a lot in the community for our size, and we like to partner so that we can do more with our resources. Is there someone we could contact directly in addition to your book initiative, because we partner with other restaurants. We actually have a restaurant in the area outside of Ward 6 that can donate hundreds of books. So I wanted to refer you to that also, but is there someone we could contact directly?
There is. I appreciate that very much. I'd love to make sure we can strengthen those connections.
Yes.
Outside of just connecting with me personally and directly, Ms. Mitchell, who's right here, and then there's Mr. Jamal Jordan in my office, who's also our Director of Constituent Services. Between the three of us, we can make sure we can connect you also to a lot of actually our, you know, Ward 6 does have a lot of social service organizations and really strong partnerships. And, you know, and I would push back just a little bit in terms of the way that you talk about Ward 7, 8 versus Ward 6. You know, one of the things that I think is really special about Ward 6 is I think unlike any other ward, I think Ward 6 looks like our city. You know, when you talk about the neighborhoods that are in Ward 6, Shaw, Hill East, H Street, Noma, Southwest, and Capitol Hill, you really look at a snapshot of the city. Both the successes that the city has as well as the challenges that we've got to overcome. Ward 6 has more public housing units than any other ward in the city. And people don't know that. I don't think that's a negative. I think it reflects the values of making sure that we have housing in our community and in our ward. We have more public housing than Ward 7, more than Ward 8. And I think that's something that we are fighting. When I talk to Ward 6 residents, they want to fight to protect that. They say, how do we make sure that we're providing quality housing for all of our residents? Back, you know, when we were on the campaign trail, it didn't matter which living room I was in, whether I was in a living room on Capitol Hill, was a living room in Shaw, living room in Southwest. When I would talk about affordable housing and making sure we understood what that challenge was that we're facing, every head was nodding. I think that our city gets it, that we really have got to figure out aggressively how we're tackling affordable housing in particular. And I, in particular, are concerned about family-based affordable housing. You know, our city has thrown up condos and those studios and 500 square foot mini apartments all over the place. But we're not doing a great job on family-based housing, the 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. So you're a single person, maybe one kid, we're creating public housing, or we're creating affordable housing in that respect. As soon as we have a family, I don't think our city's doing enough. And that's part of where I want to put my priority and my focus. But I do think that Ward 6 has a lot of great organizations. I'd love to make sure I can help connect you to them a little bit stronger.
Thank you. And my emphasis was not so much housing, but more of the youth involvement and literacy and things like that, because there is a connection to all of that.
We've got some great organizations right near your church, actually,
Thank you.
between Perry Center, Boys and Girls Club, and other places that I'd love to connect you with.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember
Yes.
Allen, I want to congratulate you again, and I think I feel good about your victory, and I trust that your victory will also symbolize our victory in the days to come.
Thank you.
But I have a question for you. You mentioned that in April, a new budget is coming forth with a $250 million budget fall. In lieu of the programs that you want to institute or begin, what type of services do you think or programs may be cut to fill that $250 million?
I appreciate that. So, and let me spend just a quick second. So our budget is continuing to grow. So I don't want to say that we're headed down. From a city standpoint, we're actually in great financial strength. We've got almost $2 billion, that's a B, in our cash reserve, our savings account, basically. That's the indication of an incredibly strong city. So I don't mean to be sounding alarm bells with that. However, what we do is we look at, if we didn't change spending one bit, and just the natural cost of everything that just goes up over time, based on what we're bringing in, that's where we see the $250 million gap. And what's going to happen is we have to figure out how do we meet that. There are absolutely savings to be found in our budget, and I'll give you just one example. DC General is our family homeless shelter. It's at capacity, it's full. So we have hundreds and hundreds of families right now in the city that we are putting in hotels. Hundreds and hundreds of families in hotels. Now the hotel costs you, $95, when we can negotiate a good deal, it's maybe about $85 a night. But the cost difference between what's called Housing First, this is something I really think we need to recommit ourselves to. Housing First says, if we've got a homeless family or a homeless individual, let's put them with a roof over their head, let's put them into a place